This is Arts Alive. I'm Linda Philippi, and my guest today is Barbara Paanakker. Barbara is a first-time artist on the Art Harvest Studio Tour this year, and a multimedia artist, which is lovely. Yes. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
How are you feeling about being on the tour?
I'm very excited. I have been doing Portland Open Studios for 5 years in a row a while ago. And I moved to Yamhill County, and I was very excited to find another open studio tour.
Oh, good. I'm really glad. So, and you'll be showing with Kim?
Yes.
Okay, at your own home studio?
Yes, I have a rather large studio, and there's a large garage attached, which we will make very pretty for her to show in.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. So that's the first 2 weekends in October?
Yes.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
yes.
And Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
But starting on the 6th of October, so because the 1st of October is actually on the Sunday before. So.
Okay, so all right.
Yeah.
The first 2 full weekends in October, we'll say. Okay, good. And the catalogs are probably just about out now, aren't they? I think so.
I guess so.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about you, how you came to art in the first place, and then sort of found your path to us.
Yeah, so I have always loved to do art. I loved to, when I was a kid, I was always drawing, using colored pencils and things like that. And also very attracted always to flowers and colors. And we didn't have many resources, so I would create things out of nothing, like paper rolls or whatever we had in the house. I was always doodling with something.
Okay.
And life went on, and actually worked in a pharmacy for a while, and we got children, and then we moved here 3 times, and the 3rd time was in 2005. But the 2nd time when we moved back, I got this folder in the mail in Holland saying painting lessons, and I thought, I need that. I needed something for myself. I was really busy with 3 children, and I really wanted to learn how to paint. And so I took this painting class with a private art teacher. Well, it wasn't private, there were more people. It was like a community center. And he right away, after a couple of classes, said that I had talent, which I was like, I had no idea. And so, it went from there. I took some other classes, and and then when we moved here, I was very lost because I had nobody telling me we're going to paint this and this today, and so it was good too because the recession hit at that moment, and I just painted and tried all kind of things, and then a couple of years later, I took an encaustic painting class just for a day, and that triggered me to think about how I could use objects in my paintings, different materials than just paint. And I've never done encaustic after that anymore, or a little bit, but I started to put that in the heavy gel, which I use in my acrylic paintings.
Yeah, I mean, you can maybe speak a little bit about the paintings that you did bring, but they're very three-dimensional.
Yeah, I like texture in my paintings, and that's what I almost always do. I don't want to say all paintings, but most of them have that. And can I turn around?
Sure.
So, like, for instance, in this painting, there is a piece of twine in there.
Oh, is that what that is? Okay.
Yeah, I started with a thick layer of gel. And so then it's very wet and takes a while to dry, and I put the twine in there to make little lines like what you see here.
Oh, yeah.
So there I didn't leave the twine, but then I thought, I should actually use the twine too, because it gives a really fun texture to it. And after I'd done that, I just made some of the flower-like things in there, textures on there, and then it needs to dry for a couple of days. Sometimes it's so thick that it needs to dry for a whole week.
Oh, sure.
But that depends on what I'm working on. and then I start painting. And sometimes I add more gel or add more textures. Like in here, I mostly the things like the eggshells in here. I add later. There's little nails in here, which are kind of like the grass.
Oh, is that what it is?
And yeah, and this I formed with a palette knife.
So is that just a big
painting.
like blob of paint?
Yeah, yeah.
And it probably took a long time to dry.
Well, this takes like a day or 4
really?
or 5 days. But I've done rather large paintings where I put the canvas on the floor. I've also used like wooden substrates, and then I got a bucket of heavy gel which I mix with paint and stuff. And I take my palette knife and I just start throwing it on there. I at first put down all paper, like glued down paper in there, or strips of paper, so you get that texture, and then the blobs come on it. And these paintings are way more abstract. And yeah, I like to make those too. It's just, I kind of go from one thing to another. It's just what my brain wants. So when you come in my studio, you see a lot of different kind of works. Sometimes people say like, hey, you don't stay with one subject, but I need that. Otherwise I get bored with what I'm doing. So I like flowers. Mostly in the summer I paint flowers, and in winter I go more abstract and maybe a little darker too. And then, you know, it's just with what my mood is at that moment, what I feel like, what I want to do, and that's what I do. I don't paint to satisfy somebody for what they want. I paint for what I like, what I want.
And obviously you've found a market for that.
Oh, absolutely. And it's often that the very abstract paintings go to a totally different client than the paintings which are more of the botanical paintings.
Do you do like portraits at all, or straight landscape? That's not really your thing. Okay.
I actually do have a larger painting with mountains on it. So I do some mountain paintings, but they're all more abstract. There's not that you say like, oh, it really exists somewhere, or it comes out of my mind, or mostly actually the gel speaks to me like, oh, this should go here and that should go there. And so it kind of grows under my hands. I never know what I'm starting to do. Some paintings I paint over like 3 or 4 times before I find what I'm actually painting. And that's totally fine. That's the beauty of acrylic paint. It dries within 5 minutes, and you can just go over it and make it white again or whatever. I often use the color underneath, and the paintings I struggle the most with the most colors underneath, often turn out the best.
Really?
So, yeah. But don't ask me to paint a portrait or an animal or something, because I don't think that's going to work out.
I have a vision of your studio of walking in and just seeing sort of an explosion of colors and textures and all different kinds of stations with different things around, and that's fun though. People like to, that's going to be popular on the tour, I would think, because people really do like to see your process.
Yeah, I definitely want to make several as probably smaller paintings in the different stages, so that people can see how it starts and then what I do then, you know. And I will have a larger painting what I will be working on. And yeah, it's messy when I'm working. I think during this tour I probably cannot throw around too many things because people, you don't want them to trip over anything.
Right.
But I will definitely be demonstrating. And that was the fun of when I did Portland Open Studios years ago. A lot of people said like, oh, this was the best. I saw so many things. You know, I would sit on the floor and paint, and people were all around me. And
how fun.
It was very fun. And I like that, you know, because people, you know, give you joy. It's very fun.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's exciting. Talk to me a little bit about your ceramics. When did you start with ceramics?
Ceramics is about, I don't even exactly know anymore, I guess like 10 years ago maybe.
Okay.
I started with another artist, Sarah Swink. She gave me lessons and she taught me everything about clay. I didn't know anything. So I started from scratch, and she told me, you know, well, let's make a cube, like a box, and you know, and then now let's make a pinch ball, and so we started with all very simple things, and of course the first time you come like, I want to make something like this, and it's really hard, and that didn't work out.
Right.
And Yeah, so I've always I always loved the 3D idea, and the funny thing is with the 3D, I'm a little bit better in making something real. So I've been making like totem for my yard with animals on it and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Which I'm not able to draw at all. So it's kind of funny. And then these tubies, well, a couple of years ago I made dancing pots, which were really fun. They had a lot of movement in there too. Somebody gave me a wheel, and that was very nice. And I started to learn on the wheel, and I got all these funky little things because, you know, the wheel's really hard. It still is. And so I started to put them together, and they become all kind of like dancing pots. That's what I call them. And then... well, then the tubies came because I was showing somebody how to make a tube, because she wanted to make a picture, and I was just telling her like, oh, you do this and that, and it didn't work out. So I thought, okay, I'll make a tube myself, and then I see what the problems are. And so I did, and then I had the tube, and I was like, okay, now what? What am I gonna do with this? So I kind of pushed it together, and I put some of those balls on there, and I was like, And I was like, oh, it's actually kind of a fun structure. That's kind of fun. And so then I took all the balls off except for one, and I put little hands on there.
It turns into a person.
And little feet, and that's how it happened.
These are really wonderful. So, because, I mean, I guess to me it looks like it's folded in a way. So do you roll it out? Is that how you do it?
So I make a slab, and then out of the slab I make a tube.
Oh, okay.
And then I have
that's when you start manipulating the tube.
Yeah, and that, because it's a really thin clay, you can kind of like fold it.
Okay.
But, you know, you have to feel exactly where you can go too far and it will break, because it's clay. It has a mind of its own. So the first couple I made, they were all having holes in there in places where they shouldn't be, and so I you know, those are gone back to clay. But you know, I thought, oh, this is fun, and then I made a whole bunch of them, and you know, I don't know. Last week I had a show and I sold a whole bunch too, so they're all gone, and so now I'm working hard to make more for the show.
So you have a kiln in your home?
Yes, in my studio. I got I have a very beautiful home, I would say, and I have a studio, like a separate building next to it, and there's two parts of the studio, because the clay gives a lot of dust, which you don't want with the painting.
Oh,
so there's a big door in between. I can close the door when I do too much dust, and and the kiln is in the clay studio. You know,
it's really true. I'm having some work done in my kitchen, and it's amazing when they start sanding and dusting. That dust goes everywhere.
It does. Absolutely.
It's like in the finest little cracks. You see that dust. So keeping that out of your paint studio is probably a bit of a challenge in a way.
Yeah, well, you know, it's when I dry the paintings, I have a good system which sucks up the air. And
like a big fan or something.
Yeah, because when it's laying flat after I varnish it, you don't want all dust to come on there. So it kind of makes a kind of a vacuum in that room. I close the door and no dust will fall.
Nice.
Yeah.
So for the tour, then you'll have your painted works, and you'll also have your clay works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know what I will be demonstrating when. I might choose days that I do on Saturday I do clay, and on Sunday I'll do painting, or I don't know if I might have two things going on at the same time. That's a little harder with the dust and my hands would get very dirty.
I was going to say, so then you're like, hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah, exactly. You cannot do that with clay.
Sure.
My hands get very dirty with the paint too, but then it dries really quick, and you can still shake somebody's hand. It's fine.
Well, I am thrilled that you were able to join us today, and really looking forward to this. And it sounds like there's going to be a nice coalition of about 7 artists up there on Bald Peak area.
Yeah.
So that'll be a wonderful stop.
We're getting together actually next week at my house to see that we can kind of plot out a route, and then people can find us all at the mountain, because we want to encourage each other to see. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Barbara. It's lovely to meet you. And
thank you.
I love your work. Can't wait to see your studio.
Well, I'm excited to see that you come by.
Thank you.
Very fun. Thank you, too.